Hi, everybody. We are back. It is December 2nd, and welcome to the Green Nurse Podcast, where we bring hope and inspiration for growth and healing. And oftentimes we talk about things that people do not want to talk about because they're important subjects that need to be discussed to decrease stigma for healing. So you all heard me a little while earlier this evening. I read a letter from one of the nurses in our community. Thank you so much, Cheryl, for writing that letter. So she is a registered nurse, a cannabis nurse who has been taking care of COVID-19 patients, and she developed COVID herself. So I read a letter. You can see that a little bit earlier. If we have enough time at the end, I will read it again. So we all know COVID-19 and the pandemic is a really big, hot topic of debate for many, many people. So today we're going to have a discussion on the Rona and with Carrie Lee, who also happens to be a nurse who has worked with COVID-19 patients, and she contracted the illness not at work, but from someone in the community through indirect exposure. So tonight I'm going to welcome back Green Nurse Iowa, Carrie Lee Lure. She's our Iowa nurse educating patients on the endocannabinoid system and the safe utilization of cannabis, as well as helping patients get their medical cards. She's a cannabis nurse, patient advocate, and works in the traditional system as a restorative nurse. She has clinical experience with both mental health disorders and chronic pain. And she was profiled on the show in Maine as to what brought her to the cannabis nursing space. And we also did a show recently last month on seasonal affective disorder and how to manage the winter blues. So welcome back, Carrie Lee. Thank you for coming to share your personal story with the pandemic. But before we get to all my questions, I just want to go over some statistics that kind of blew me away. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I haven't addressed it in public before. I really have been kind of waiting. But my sister's family got diagnosed with it. Only one of the family members was symptomatic. The rest of them were asymptomatic. And then my daughter was just recently indirectly exposed to COVID from a friend of a friend that had it. And so she has been isolating since last Wednesday and had her COVID test today, and we're going to find out the results on Friday. So statistics from December 2nd. The United States reports more than 96,000 hospitalization due to corona as of Monday, November 30th. That was a record high. Massachusetts confirmed cases over 229,000. 3,000 new cases in one day yesterday. And yesterday in Massachusetts, 50 people died of COVID-19. The United States confirmed cases over 13 million in the United States. Yesterday, over 180,000 patients were diagnosed with COVID. And yesterday, 9,000 people died in the United States of COVID. Globally confirmed cases, over 63 million cases. Yesterday, it was 599,000 new cases in one day. And yesterday, over 90,000 patients in the world died of COVID-19. So this is really, really alarming to me. It's really a topic that, like I said, is hard to talk about because there's so many different debates over it. We're not here to debate anything. What we're here to do is share information. We're here to share the cannabis nurse experience of what a registered nurse has experienced working with COVID-19 patients and what it's like to be on the other side of the bed. So Carrie Lee, thank you for coming on. You are still in the midst of it. You're still experiencing symptoms. So I'm just going to ask the very first question. What's it like? What's it like to have the Rona? What's it like to be on the other side of the bed?
I mean, I mild for me personally. It's more the mental aspect, like, whoa, I'm frustrated. I don't like to be the patient. I never get sick. I'm not one of those people that get sick every year. You know what I mean? I break bones. I blow out my knees. You know what I mean? But yeah.
So. You don't get sick. So what's your story? So what's your story?
Well, I mean, I have a little timeline that I put together. We can post that later, but I found it pretty fascinating. Like, am I talking about my exposure and all that stuff?
Yes, let's talk.
Here's the number one thing: brain fog.
There you go.
Well, I'm struggling right now, and I've had a really rough day with that. The neurological symptoms for me personally have been the worst.
Okay. So I'm not going to lie. I get it. I totally get it. I get it. And Cheryl even mentioned too in her letter that she read is that when you don't have rich oxygen blood going to your brain because you don't have good oxygen exchange because your lungs feel like bricks, right? You have lungs that are like bricks. They're stiff. The air can't get in. So if the air can't get in, then there's no oxygen exchange. You have these little tiny capillaries, the alveoli in your lungs where the oxygen exchange happens. And then you've got nice, fresh oxygen, rich blood that flows to your brain so you can think clearly. Yeah. So Carrie Lee, I can totally identify with that. And I promise you, I will be on target with the questions.
So it's like, that's the frustration part for me. That's why I get frustrated, because I normally refer to myself like I'm sharp as a tack. I double dog dare you to challenge me on something. But now I'm like, just organizing my desktop is this crazy thing. Anywho.
Let's go through that timeline. And then we'll talk about the patients that you worked with and how we know that was an indirect exposure. So we'll go back. Timeline first.
So I know of, my husband was directly exposed to an individual that was confirmed positive with symptoms. And so at that point, it becomes tough. What am I going to do? Anyway, so I was indirectly exposed, I'm gauging about the last week of October. And then, my first neurological symptoms kind of popped up here November 2nd. Like, I can go back and look at it because just based upon what my appointments were, what I was doing on social media. So initially it was really just a headache that would not go away. I don't get headaches. I don't got issues with that. Headache, dizziness. I could be just sitting here and getting dizzy. Brain fog, horrible. Yeah.
But you haven't had any symptoms and you didn't have a clue.
No, like the Rona wasn't even on my radar. Not even Josh on that. But I will say there'd be moments I'd even be at work on the floor and I'm like, just all of a sudden random headache, getting dizzy. And I'm thinking, oh man, it's been, 8 hours. I haven't had a meal. Let me, check my blood sugar, and everything's fine. So I'm like going to the things that COVID wasn't on my brain. Right. So later that week I had a dental cleaning and that rung out to me because I had missed my original appointment when it all happened and everything had to be shut down. Right. So it kind of was triggering me out. I was extremely triggered. I'm going to bring stress. I'm going to bring external stress into this factor. Bear with me. I was extremely stressed out at the beginning of November, as was the rest of the world. The elections were going on, and I'd done such a great job avoiding it at that point, but I was really just wigged out. It was just too much to bear. My stress was and same thing with that dental cleaning. I was triggered. I got issues in that area. And then on the 5th, I described it to you earlier. It's like if you're one that has any kind of chronic pain issues and you've got these hot spots in your body that you're going to get a flare here or there, right? Well, every single one of my hot spots was flaring up and they don't correlate to each other. They've never had any kind of interconnection. But on this day, it was just like, and I know this because I went back and saw my post. I put a post up referencing, oh my God, like.
So just for new people, when we talk about hot spots, so I have a chronic autoimmune condition. And when I get into a pain flare, sometimes it manifests in, either the back of my neck, my shoulders, the truly up in the neck area, sometimes in my chest. Other times that I've had chronic pain flares, I've had it develop in my knees or my elbows or my wrists. It feels like you're getting zapped. It's just this crazy zappy feeling. So when she says her hot spots all came on fire at once, that would be my neck, my chest, my shoulders, my wrists, my knees, and my ankles all at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's what you're referring to, right? So it wasn't.
That was my neck, my shoulders, down to my fingertips, my knees, and my old plantar fasciitis flaring right up. So anyway, yeah, it sucked. So here's another thing. So November 9th, car accident.
Wow.
I put my 19-year-old son's car into a ditch, a ravine that was like this. I lost control on a gravel road, and here's the thing. I swear to God, I was a race car driver in a past life. I am precise. I am like, bam. Okay. Not that day. It's the brain fog. I lost control. I know what to do when you're swerving. You don't hit the brake. You ride it out. You let up off of everything and get control of the wheel. I slammed on the freaking brake. It's like my brain knew not to do it, but my foot said F. And I just was like this. Boom.
Wow. Okay. So car accident.
Yeah. And then the 10th, we had an ice storm. We lost our power for like a whole day. And I totally tripped out and had a CPTSD episode.
So for people that are new, CPTSD is complex post-traumatic disorder.
Yeah. So I had an episode because I was just triggered by, feeling powerless. And November 11th, you and I did our show on SAD, which was the highlight.
Seasonal affective disorder. So Carrie Lee is an expert on that, and we did an awesome show.
I battle it, and one of the things with seasonal affective disorder is brain fog. So I was pinning it on that, and if you go back and look at that show, you can see me. There were a couple times where I actually had to stop. You'd ask me a question, and it was like, oh my God, I know it's in this file, but the drawer is locked and closed, and
right.
So anyway, that Friday the 13th, I've been going through random tests. Well, not random. It's based on an algorithm because I work in a skilled nursing facility by day. Depending upon certain number of positive staff or resident, you're getting tested anywhere from every 2 to 4 days. So I had.
You were getting regularly tested. You were getting regularly tested at work.
Oh yeah, it's the one way that they're trying to help control any containments, any outbreaks within a facility. So I tested negative, but that day I just felt, oh my God, every single part of my body hurt. My muscles ached like I've never felt them ache. I just emotionally I was so frustrated because I couldn't figure it out. It was just an overall, those hot spots were killing me. I could barely walk on my foot. I left work early that day because I just couldn't get it together. And I literally went into my DON's office and cried. I was like, I'm sorry. I'm like, I can't put my finger on it. I don't get sick and I just feel so unwell. And she's like, Scoot, go. And now I know why. Because I woke up Saturday morning, and that's when I felt the tops of my lungs, just the tops. They were so sore, like almost like if you got a really great workout session and you're feeling the pain, and it's that, that's kind of the soreness, but they felt like boulders. So sore and boulders. I wasn't having any trouble breathing at that point. I just kind of was like, everything's so weird, So anyway, by the time Monday rolls around, I had to go. Monday, I went and covered. I just covered a short shift to go past meds because a lot of my colleagues are, they're getting burned out, and I struggled. Thank God it was a princess shift. It was only 4 hours. And I had to like, you know how we have to do like our triple checks. Well, I'm like freaking 9 times checking everything because I'm just like, and I'm
Right.
still blaming it on like, oh my God, you're having an episode, you're having a panic, an exam. I'm blaming it on all my other things.
So prior to Monday, your last test was on Friday and it was negative.
Correct.
Okay.
So
So Friday, your test is negative. You're home. Saturday, Sunday, you feel like crap. Your
it's just
lungs feel like lead.
escalating. I'm declining quickly. And so Tuesday we had you had to come in and test whether you were working or off. So I went in first thing in the morning because I knew, wait, back up. So Monday night I get home and I ate a bowl of chocolate ice cream, sprinkled some peanuts on there, that peanut butter and chocolate thing. Couldn't taste it.
There you go.
And that's the first time I was like, boom. I couldn't.
So then you knew. Like, so then that symptom. I mean,
I can't taste. I can't smell. I'm like, oh my God! It was like the horror movie where the walls come in like, it's COVID.
So they still made you come in, even though you had the, they still.
I did not like call ahead. The way that my facility
they test
rocks.
anyways.
My facility rocks.
Good.
The way
I'm
they
glad.
have it set up and the entrance and how they're doing it, like you're not accessing anybody until you've gone through the swab.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. So
okay,
I went straight to my DON's office and just said, "Hey, look, I'm symptomatic. Let's get this dog and pony going here." And yeah, I told them what my symptoms were, and I said, I'd be shocked if I was negative, and I popped positive, and yeah, they were just like, bye, scoot.
Okay, all right, so there we go.
Administrators.
So now you're sent home. You've been diagnosed with COVID-19 on Tuesday. Now what do you do? How are you taking care of yourself? What are you doing?
Well, the first thing I did, being a nurse, I'm like, I got to make sure I already have obviously, as nurses, we have our everything stocked up and ready to roll, right? The only thing I needed to get on board were nebs. I wanted to have neb treatments on board in case I continued declining. Because, God, man, within the 72-hour period, it was just like, boop, 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 So, yeah, they made me come in. I was so ticked off here, that nurse attitude, because it's like, you know what you need. Why do you want me to come in? I'm positive. Like, this is ridiculous. Anyway, whatever. I went in, got the nebs, rest. I had patients to take care of, like consultant work. So I'm just like, up in my bed with my tea. Chamomile is my go-to when there's any kind of drainage or anything, like warm, hot tea, which has antioxidants and calming properties and all that good stuff, right? So, but, I'm talking to this patient.
Wait, you worked? You were?
I was working, girl. I'm a nurse. I got people that need stuff. I wasn't dead. I wasn't, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I do. I know what you're saying, but you deserve to rest. I didn't know you were calling patients up.
I was calling patients. And that was one of the moments, the freak out moments I had as a nurse and a patient, because I had shortness of breath just talking. Obviously, we're not suffering that right now. But
right.
Yeah, to just talk to this patient, and I'm having shortness of breath. The patient's like, you know what? I'm going to let you go. She's like, let's do it. I'm like, no.
Oh my gosh.
We're like fighting about it back and forth on the phone.
Right. All right. So you have the neb.
Care of yourself, rest, tea. I did an expectorant, just a couple days. Here's the thing. I don't think I got such a huge bad case first. Let's do that.
Yeah.
I bathe my system in cannabinoids.
There we go. Boom. Here we go. the green nurse is all about, right? So we're all about everything that supports.
Get it on in there.
Yeah. So we are all about what supports and nourishes the endocannabinoid system. So you were using cannabinoids. Tell us what you were using.
I mean, I definitely do 1-to-1 tinctures during the day because I want relief, but I want to be clear-headed, especially now I'm struggling a little more on that. I could not, like after, dealing with the congestion and all that junk, I couldn't inhale. That really stunk.
Mm.
You got to stay away from it because it's just,
you couldn't like, get it in. The neuroplastics, like
nah. I use non-psychedelic mushroom extracts. Found a great company. Actually, I'm not an affiliate, but I'm just going to show you guys.
I take those.
Yeah. So I regularly use cordyceps, reishi, and lion's mane, and then I have like a Super 8 mixture of all of it. They're mixed. The ones that I do are mixed with dark chocolate and organic cinnamon. So I put that in my coffee. I put it in my smoothie every day. So, here's the thing. The mushrooms are adaptogens. So they're helping my body adapt to the stress, right? Also, mushrooms are packed with vitamin D. Vitamin D is huge. And I supplement big time on vitamin D anyway for my seasonal affective disorder. But vitamin D is huge for immunity. It's, totally. I mean, I've got a whole little list here on all that. Actually, there were, I've got an article linked that we can link.
That we'll link.
Deficiencies in vitamin D linked to severe COVID cases.
There you go.
It's a steroid that functions like a hormone. So what do steroids do? Everything goes that anti-inflammatory.
We're working on our immune system. So what are we doing? We're communicating our our central nervous system and our enteral nervous system via the way of the endocannabinoid system through our improving our nutrition, using phytobotanical nutrients, other adaptogens, and health and wellness foods. So what else were you taking?
Yeah,
so you have.
I do ashwagandha. Oh, that stuff is fabulous. Gotta have quality. So again, that's another adaptogen. It helps reduce fatigue. It helps with your adrenal health, which is really, really been a big issue for me. I think because of my CPTSD and just constantly for 30 plus years going out of the 4Fs, fight, flight, fawn, and freeze, your nervous system becomes dysregulated. So that's helped me get that in line. Huge anti-inflammatory, brain health, mood stabilizer. So I love that. And then I also do a curcumin. And the capsules, I love this one because they have both black pepper and avocado oil in it, to help or better, because we need a good fat in that. So all of those things also help boost our endocannabinoid system.
Yes, they do. Adaptogens. Wow.
Zinc. I'm a zinc girl. I crank the zinc up.
Vitamin C, selenium.
Yep. And then I do magnesium citrate at night as a relaxant. So that's my normal regimen. And I really believe that my everyday health regimen, along with everything else I do, I think that's why I had a mild case. I mean, I was very uncomfortable, and believe me, I had the same moments that Cheryl's experienced where you're like, oh my God, it's declining, but it's like you go from 0 to 60. I can't even imagine what nurses like Cheryl like in that. I'm in extreme rural
Iowa. So yeah. Iowa was the number 22 state with the worst COVID cases. Massachusetts number 23.
Wow.
So Iowa has a total of 233,062 cases. Massachusetts 229,205 cases. of COVID-19. So
my little neck of the woods up here in far rural, they're experiencing their first wave.
So Iowa is experiencing their first wave of COVID.
Where I am geographically, it's a very different bird. I mean, because what you're dealing with Iowa, you've got your larger cities are down south in the southern portion of the state, and then I mean we're like farmland, man. We're the heartland. We're the farmers of the world. So I'm just saying, like, you know, you don't have as large of a population in rural as you do in even suburbia versus urban. So, you know,
I think that the rurals wouldn't get it as much. So that's why it's taken so long to get there.
Well, and the mentality too. I mean, that's been a big fight here. The mentality too is it's not going to touch us. We have a little bit of a false sense of security because we are so rural. Here's a couple little factoids. I'm 3 hours in any direction to the closest airport. Number one. Number two, the closest Target, my Target fans, the closest Target, 1.5 hours one way. So that ought to tell you. See, you should see your face right now, Sherry.
An hour and a half to Target. I got a 5-minute ride.
I mean, you know what? That's completely unacceptable, but that's an entirely different show.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. Anyway, so yeah, now that you guys can gauge what I'm talking about, like I'm rural.
Really rural.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing on this was the indirect contact.
Yeah.
And let me break this down. So I can count on both of my hands how many times I've left the county that I work in and the county that I live in. Okay. And that includes a trip out to Massachusetts. I hit up 3 major airports in that trip. That was in September. So that's what ticked me off. And here you're going to see a little bit of ghetto here. It pisses me off that, I mean, I make that commitment willingly as a nurse from the very beginning. Like, you know what? I'm not going anywhere. I'll go to the grocery store. I'll gas up. I'll go to work. We're good. I made that commitment. That's the oath I took as a nurse. Okay. No problem. So I've been doing that since January 31st, since President Trump shut it all, the long-term care centers down. So for me, it just ticks me off that I got it here indirectly, locally. I told you at one point, I was like, I'm mad at the world. I'm mad at the world right now. I really was.
And that's the thing too, is that you were taking care of COVID-19 patients and you didn't get it. Right? So being careful, you know, in the hospital, in the setting, traveling, you didn't get it. You were very, very cautious. And here you got it from an indirect exposure from someone that wasn't so cautious.
And the point that I would like to make is I didn't have control of that situation. That's the problem. That's why indirect exposure is so dangerous with this. Just going to put that out there.
Just going to put that out there.
Put it out there.
All right, I'm going to conclude with Nurse Cheryl's. Cheryl, if you're listening, I'm going to read this again because it's very powerful. So Cheryl Naldoni is a nurse in the community in Massachusetts. She works in the traditional system. She's also a cannabis nurse, and she does amazing advocacy work and an educator, and she works with the CBD line of products. So she wrote me a letter because she was hospitalized with COVID-19 and she wanted to share her experience. Bear with me. It's a little long, but it's worth the listen. Dear Sherry, my green nurse friends, and to all of my friends and patients in the cannabis community, I know everyone is sick of hearing about COVID-19. I know that the very mention of it can be a very divisive issue at the moment. I myself wished it would just disappear totally too. As far back as last March, I knew as a medical professional that it was going to be a long battle that we would face, but I don't think I could even begin to imagine what things look like today. I've taken care of many COVID patients. I've been at the bedside of both the young and the old, and the previously healthy and the chronically sick who have died from this. That's the one thing about this virus. It does not discriminate. I've had days where more than one patient has died from it. I've held countless iPads in patients' rooms and talked to family members about their loved ones' plan of care, updated them on their statuses, and given them a chance to say their goodbyes via technology. For those who have survived, I've watched them have to battle a long road back to health. I've seen my patients go through physical therapy to try to regain their strength. I've seen previous marathon runners have to go to a skilled nursing facility to obtain long-term care in order to be able to digest food again, to learn how to walk again, to give their bodies a chance to rebuild muscle and strength so they could live. That's one of the things that the news often neglects from reporting on COVID and what's conveniently left off the lips of most politicians: the morbidity of this illness. Most focus on the death rate, and pretty much most people I talk to outside of healthcare aren't really aware that this virus has a death rate at 10 times higher than the flu. Most don't realize that years down the line, we will have lost many of the lucky patients who survive their initial infection with COVID due to the long-term health complications we are seeing in survivors. We are beginning to see long-term complications even now. I've seen some of my prior patients from the COVID unit coming back into the hospital with strokes, heart attacks, and a whole other array of medical problems that they weren't at risk for before. What's truly scary is some of these patients only had what would be considered a mild case of COVID. This is why those who mistakenly feel that herd immunity would be the answer and suggest just letting the infection run wild in the population aren't truly understanding what they are suggesting. If we were to do what we would have the worst case of an overburdened healthcare system you would ever see. You would also see the death rate from this illness sharply rise and have a whole generation of people with severe health issues that would put them at risk for a younger death and a shorter life expectancy. Also, I have to tell you that we still have no clear idea of what to expect for long-term immunity after recovering from the virus. Everything about this virus so far has been unusual and totally unclear. We don't have all the answers to it yet. It's baffling in the way that it behaves. Perhaps what troubles me the most as a nurse, besides the emotional stress of being isolated from family members as a result of working the pandemic, or the emotional weight of seeing so many patients so critically ill and dying, is the fact that so many people out there don't believe that it's real. In the 20 years I've worked in healthcare, I've never seen so many people collectively refuse to believe what the doctors and nurses tell them. I can't even begin to tell you what it's like to see patients so scared and frightening, so hard to breathe for the last 12 hours at work, and then leave the hospital and hear some less informed individual in front of you at the market screaming, "This is a hoax. This is a conspiracy. You're all sheep. I'm not wearing a mask. Not wearing a mask is a right." Or people going on social media to try to stay connected and have people you consider friends going on and on with baseless conspiracy theories on how doctors and nurses are falsely marketing all deaths as COVID so they can profit off the death. Doctors and nurses profiting off of COVID just does not make sense to me. That's the worst feeling and insult in the world. So we have gone from being healthcare workers, healthcare heroes, to the most trusted profession to now being called liars for what we make sound like villains. So we have gone from being healthcare heroes and the most trusted profession to liars and villains. I firmly blame some of the politicians and their decisions to use the medical crises as a platform for gaining votes. Doctors and nurses across the country beg both sides of the aisle to not do that, as we were aware of the dangerous situation it would create, and it has fallen upon deaf ears. We are now in the wake of the disaster those political taxes have created. Our ability to teach the community any safety precautions to prevent this virus from spreading has totally destroyed by political division and conspiracy theory nonsense. It's utterly depressing and demoralizing. What's even worse is now that we're starting to have many doctors and nurses start to fall ill, such as you've heard 2 nurses here tonight. In New England, we've had a couple of relatively quiet months in regards to COVID, which we've seen over the summer, and life seemed to be returning back to normal. Many of our COVID units were empty, and we were starting to see less and less of it in the ERs and the ICUs until 3 weeks ago. It all abruptly changed. We're now seeing more and more COVID positive patients returning to the ER, and these people are sicker. Each week, the number grows. Each week, the number of COVID patients in the hospitals is growing further, and they seem to be getting sicker faster than before. The patients are also younger. They have less comorbidity factors, which means that they're healthy. And some of them are us, nurses. Some of the patients we are treating are our own colleagues. A couple of weeks ago, several of my coworkers and myself were exposed to the virus outside of work. Aggressive contact tracing seems to point to the evidence that we were exposed in a restaurant setting while picking up takeout after work. From what we understand, there was a person there in the restaurant dining who had been recently exposed to COVID, was asymptomatic, and was tested that day. This person didn't understand that even when you're asymptomatic and have a test, you still have to quarantine yourself for a certain amount of days. So this person was indirectly exposed, went and got tested, but didn't go home, went out to eat. And this person ended up being positive, was asymptomatic and positive. And this is how the nurse Cheryl got sick. So this person didn't understand that even when you're asymptomatic and you've had a test, you still must quarantine. So this person went out with their family and unfortunately spread the virus to several other people who were picking up food, several of my colleagues, some of the restaurant workers, their family members, and myself included. That's all it takes. One asymptomatic person who is positive, taking off their mask in an enclosed setting. I don't blame this person and I hold no anger. This is what viruses live to do. They live to spread and replicate in people no matter how hard you try to contain them. Within several days of picking up that fateful pizza dinner, I started exhibiting symptoms of fatigue and dizziness. I tested negative for COVID, but was told to isolate at home and take the weekend off. So she initially tested negative and she was having symptoms, but she was told to isolate and take the weekend off from work and to rest. A couple of days later, I woke up feeling great. I thought all was well. And then by that afternoon, I felt like I had been run over by a train. I suddenly experienced a total loss of smell, total loss of taste with zero nasal congestion. I was afraid I was having a stroke or some other weird neurological event. I felt like it was hard to focus on anything. Within a couple of hours after that, I spiked one of the highest fevers I have ever had. I was short of breath, profoundly nauseous, and dizzy. My head felt like it was going to explode. It hurt so bad. It was then confirmed by rapid test and chest x-ray that I indeed had COVID. The last 10 days have been brutal. I have received excellent care and treatment, and I am home now. But I still feel awful and it's scary. The shortness of breath, the pneumonia from this virus gives you is beyond belief. I'm someone who works 12 to 14 hours a day on my feet. I'm constantly active. I'm in excellent health. I'm of a healthy weight. I eat very healthy. I don't smoke. I don't drink, and I don't rely on pharmaceuticals. Today, I could not even make it up a flight of stairs with my laundry without sitting to rest for a few minutes, and I felt like I was gasping for air, and all I do is sleep all the time. There have been moments in the last week and a half I've been afraid I was failing. I've been afraid at points that I would never see my loved ones again, that I was going to die alone in isolation. That's what this thing does to you. It creates such anxiety, depression, and fatigue in your brain due to the lack of oxygenated blood flow. And as a nurse, we all know how quickly bad things can happen for a COVID patient. The other night, I literally sat awake for hours, waiting for my body temperature to drop to something resembling normal, so I could go to sleep without the fear of declining or getting worse in my sleep. I'm told this is all normal. As a nurse, I should know this is normal for an illness, but when it's happening to you, the fear is unreal. The worst part is the isolation of the quarantine. COVID is so highly contagious that you have to be isolated from loved ones and friends. At first, it's okay. You don't care because you feel so ill. But after a couple of days, the loneliness and the depression from that start to really add up, and you realize it's been days and you've seen a face or have hugged a loved one. Everyone you see is a medical worker who's not a loved one, and they're all covered in protective equipment. Phone calls and texts become lifelines for COVID patients. If you know someone who is going through this, know that a message, a call, a letter will mean everything to them. I know that that COVID rattled my brain and that I'm rambling on for too long, but I want to leave this letter to you all in one note. If there's anything you can gain from this, I wish for it to be this. Please, please, please know that this thing is real. It is no joke. This can happen to anyone. And I don't want this happening to one more person I know. It's come back again for its second show, and it's not playing around. Now it is cooler weather, lower humidity, and the flu virus to make it extra strong. Please stop listening to all of those that are trying to divide us, and let's come together. Please start listening to your nurses and doctors again, and know that you can trust us. We don't want one more person to fall ill to this. Keep you and your loved ones safe. Follow the recommendations of your local medical establishments that are giving you to prevent infection. I pray you all stay healthy and well, and I thank you all for your support and such kindness that you have shown me in the last couple of days. It means the world to me. Stay well, love one another, be kind to one another. And this is signed Cheryl A. Benedetti. She's a registered nurse.
Cheryl, good vibes, love.
Yeah, good vibes, love. Thank you for sharing that. No, truly. So truly, there's a couple of questions. Does smoking cannabis help fight the virus? I don't think so. No. I think having a healthy immune system and doing what we're supposed to do, hand washing, the social distancing, the masks, and taking care of your endocannabinoid system, eating right, sleeping, supplements. What we were talking about, vitamin D, the adaptogens, the mushrooms, the ashwagandha, echinacea, elderberry, lots of water, teas, getting outside for fresh air, healthy sleep, avoiding alcohol, avoiding fast food, fried food, fake food, artificial flavors, artificial colorings, right? So it's truly about supporting and nourishing your endocannabinoid system and using cannabinoids. Yes, I use cannabinoids. Yes, Carrie Lee uses cannabinoids. However, that's not the only thing that we do. And I don't think that smoking cannabis is going to help fight the virus.
Tinctures, edibles, capsules, whatever.
Yeah. Well, and especially if you have the virus, you really want to avoid putting anything in your lungs.
I'll admit, I tried because I like to have a good little puff. No can do.
In a lot of situations too, I've seen cannabinoids with lung cancer patients act as a bronchodilator and has helped them. But for this, it not appropriate. Mm-hmm. So anyways, this has been a really, really powerful, moving show. Carrie Lee, I know that, you haven't felt well, and I'm just want to say I'm extremely grateful for your dedication. Just so sweet, like literally grateful for your dedication. You deserve to rest. And thank you for sharing your story, because I'm truly hoping, that people out there will listen, will listen to two nurses. I read a letter from one nurse. We have a nurse here in the flesh that have actually, taken care of COVID-19 patients, have not gotten sick. That's the thing. These are two nurses that work with COVID-19 patients that have not gotten sick. They got the illness indirectly from someone else. So indirect contact, asymptomatic, turning symptomatic days later. So that's really important.
Stay home for the holidays. It's, it's freaking actually pretty amazing to just be home with your immediate family members.
Your immediate family member. Yeah.
Find the silver lining, because it's there, people. The silver lining is there.
It's there. And so if you or someone you love is suffering from chronic pain, chronic illness, you want to know how to use cannabinoids for health and wellness, contact us at The Green Nurse, www.thegreennurse.com. And if you book a consultation with or without a medical card, Nurse Mark is offering free bottle of CBD for every consultation that is booked through us. So we are truly grateful for that. We want you all to stay healthy and stay happy. And remember, Carrie Lee, what's it all about?
Living your best.
Thank you.